not the time to talk to your friends still. Because I will deliver a benediction and then all chaos. So please wait until that time. Please remain standing.
This is the day which the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it.
This is the day which the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it.
Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, and his mercy endures forever.
This is the day which the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it.
This is the day which the Lord has made.
Let us rejoice and be glad in it.
Lord, we thank you for this place in which we dwell, for the love that unites us, for the peace afforded us this day, for the hope with which we expect tomorrow, for the health, the work, the food, and the bright skies that make our life delightful, and for our friends in all parts of the earth. Spare us to our friends, soften us to our enemies. Bless us if it may be in all our innocent endeavors. If it may not, give us strength to encounter that which is to come, that we may be brave in peril, constant in tribulation, temperate in wrath, and in all changes of fortune, and down to the gates of death, loyal and loving of one another.
Though I speak with the tongues of mortals and of angels, and have not love, I am become as sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal.
And though I have the gift of prophecy, and understand all mysteries, and all knowledge, and though I have faith, so that I can remove mountains, and have not love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, and have not love, it profiteth me nothing. Love
Nancy and some people in the alumni office and I talked about who would be a good replacement. And one of the first names we came up with was Joe Dexter, a faculty member at Westover, who's been here now for 19 years. For years she was chair of the English department. And one of the reasons I think she's appropriate for this space is that she is one of the reasons that the chapel program is still alive and well at Westover. I realized after I'd been here for a while that it was not a program I could ever carry on my own shoulders. There's no program at the school that is the product of one person. Everything that works at the school works because the community works at it. The chapel program is at the center of the school, and one of the reasons is that there are a number of faculty and administrators who support the program. And I realized that it took me a while, it was slow, but I realized that after I've been here about 8 years. It worked because Monica Rothman and Joe Mulder and Angeline and a number of people supported it. Well, Joe is one of the faculty who attends every chapel service. And so I thought it was appropriate that she speak today. The speech that the talk that she's giving today, she gave earlier in the year, and a number of us thought it was very good. So we asked if she could adapt it for this morning.
Good morning, everyone. Seems very early, doesn't it? Whenever I stand up here to give a chapel talk, as I've done once a year for most of the almost 20 years I've taught English here at Westover, I'm very conscious of all of the excellent chapel talks I've heard in this place. You alums may not realize how frequently these days those excellent speakers are our current students, who over the past 5 years or so have increasingly been claiming this space as their own for some memorable talks. For instance, there was a recent student from Afghanistan, who spoke 3 or 4 years ago, I think it was 4 years ago, very movingly in this space, a very memorable chapel talk about her struggles as a refugee to find and claim for herself an education in a talk I believe you can still find on YouTube's archived Westover video page. And I don't know if all of you know that, but there are many chapel talks that you can find on YouTube where if you want to kind of tune yourself back into this space. It's nice that we can do something like that these days and bring you kind of back into the fold. And chapel, of course, is in some ways very much at the heart of the school. So for me, having been here for many years now, whenever I do a chapel talk, I mostly think of the big guy. Yeah, this one, right here. Preparing for this talk, which I first gave to our girls this past January, I kept thinking about a talk that Tom gave only once. It's unusual. Most of his talks, they kind of come around and around and around. I don't even know the hair talk. The hair talk straight and the hair straight. Very priceless. But this one, I feel, as far as I know, we only gave once. In memory of Paul Homer, a famous professor of theology down at Yale, who was an enormously important influence of Tom's. Maybe a few of you might even have been here for that talk. Maybe something about that. Maybe, I'm not sure. At any rate, with Tom's permission, I'm going to start today's talk with a great story Tom told at that chapel about his former teacher, mentor, and friend. So it's a story told of a story told, and now I'll tell it to you in Tom's words. So here's Tom. Long after he retired from Yale, when he was in his 80s, I heard Paul Homer speak at a conference hosted in his honor at Luther Seminary in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He began his remarks with a reminiscence about one of his first teaching jobs at a small university near Minneapolis. The day before he began his teaching there, the esteemed Dr. Johnson, president of the university, had, to use Homer's words, up and died. Therefore, he spent his first day at the university attending a long memorial service filled with esteemed personages who gave speeches honoring the esteemed Dr. Johnson. The first speaker referred to Dr. Johnson with sweeping gestures, making it clear that he spoke of Dr. Johnson there in a casket before the entire congregation. The second speaker spoke of Dr. Johnson as far away in a glory awaiting us all. The third speaker had another theory that Dr. Johnson was somewhere up above, looking down on everybody with, as Homer said, enhanced vision. Homer at that time was still quite young. This was his first teaching position, and he became confused about what the speakers were saying. He said that these speeches were, quote, hard on his metaphysics, So much so that when he met his class the next day for the first time, he announced them that the question of the hour was, "Where the hell is Johnson?" They were up there, nearby, far away. And that's the anecdote with which Tom began, capturing the spirit of the man he had so long admired by showing the sort of helpful uncertainty and honest confusion that were so much at the heart of Homer as a man as well as a scholar. And Homer's question, "Where the hell is Johnson?" is also where I want to start today, maybe not with Johnson, whom none of us know, but with that same question. I know it's a question that chapel, that being here in this chapel, raises for all of us. As alums, you all recall chapel, either weekly or in some cases maybe daily chapel. Twice daily. Just as we recall going through all those yearly rituals, such as candlelight. Thus, we no doubt recall how every year during those nights of the candlelight service, the first night's final cheers gave way to the last night's tears. Because it's not just each year's seniors who try and fail to sing that final hodie through their sniffles and sobs, who feel the weight of this place around us. We all do, every time we're here. You all did as students here, and I'm sure you feel even more strongly as alums. I'm sure you all recall that yearly All Souls Chapel in November with its book of names, which, like today's service, help us remember those members of Westover community no longer with us. Such special chapel services might be the most haunting in raising the specters of all the years upon years of Westover girls and faculty and staff walking and sitting in these same places. But as members of this community who are still here, I can tell you, but as members of the community who are still here can tell you, and that you might recall for yourselves, it's every week that we all come here to this space that we feel a little like ghosts ourselves already, that we feel we're just among those who have passed and are passing, and will continue to pass through these walls that remain unchanged around us. But as this example shows, it's not necessarily about death that we're talking about, is it? Because that's the funny thing about a community and a beloved place like Westover. As students, you're only here for 4 years at most. So in relation to Westover, you feel your absence, your ghostly transience, much more quickly than in relation to life itself, so very much longer. Now that you've all come back here 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 35, 50, 70 years after you graduated, I am sure you still all feel that ghost of your former student self wandering in and out of dorm rooms and classrooms, onto playing fields, into studios, eating muffins, singing Zodiac. And by the way, just as a note from our current students, if you want to make a current student really feel like a ghost, you just go ahead and burst right into her dorm room and say, "Oh my God, this is my room, and my name is right over here." They love it and they hate it. They know that it's the person they'll be someday, and they plan to do it themselves, but they instantly feel ghosted. Right? Now, as a faculty member here, I'm somewhat less transient than students who are here for such a short 4 years or less, and then become alone so quickly. Nonetheless, this passing aspect of all of us in relation to Westover struck home to me very vividly a number of years back. It was the very first year that Bruce Coffin had retired from teaching, or I should say that semi-retired from teaching. He still hasn't quite managed that transition. And began to work in the library part-time while continuing to work with our student poets and on lanterns. He still does. At that time, Bruce still read the Friday night story as the very end of Candlelight's Friday night traditions, as he had for all the years I'd been here and for many more before I arrived. As I'm sure many of you recall, Bruce, among many other things, is a natural-born storyteller and a reader. So every year the girls would always bring down blankets and sleeping bags, teddy bears, pillows, in preparation for snuggling right in as he sat down to read the story. And it didn't occur to me that that particular year was any different until the very next day, that Saturday, I was getting some soup at lunch and heard 3 freshmen at the table right behind me say to each other, "Who's that Bruce Coffin guy anyway? I don't understand why that was supposed to be such a big deal." I can still feel my shock as I literally dropped the ladle into the soup and spun around and Well, call me short-sighted, but I literally haven't realized until that very moment how very short the institutional memory of Westover could be. Because look, Bruce Coffin is a legend. At our centenary celebrations in 2008, there was very good reason why he and former English chair James Weber had their names, and only their names, sung to the tune of the Hallelujah Chorus in glorious four-part harmony. And nothing will change that legendary status or the role he has played here. But, and this is such an enormous but, that I can't believe now it never occurred to me. From the moment a teacher retires here and a new class comes in, it's as if she or he never was. So even faculty, even legendary faculty who've been here for years and years on end, the ones who seem to define the school when they're with us, even they are made to feel like ghosts. Just as you all are, because the life of the school sweeps on so quickly. Every fall, that reset button is pushed. And in a very real way, the life of the school begins anew. So that's the question I'd like to focus on. Not Homer's question about presence after death, about where one is when one has died, but the simple question of where one is when one is no longer physically here. Granted, the two questions can be and are often related, but it seems to me that death poses just a subset of the larger question. Clearly, the question itself has to change slightly, so as not to cause confusion. Because if one asks, where is Johnson, one can no longer look in any obvious way to one specific location on Earth. Whereas if one asks that question right now of Bruce Coffin, or Seamus Weber, or Lisa Marie Boncourt, or any of the thousands of graduates who for some reason are not here with us sharing a pretty rainy alumni weekend with us, one could in fact point to where that person is actually physically at that very moment. So the question becomes not where is, but what remains here of that person once she or he is no longer physically here? And that, I think, is a very good question. A very good question. There's a passage from Wolfe's novel, Mrs. Dalloway, I'd like to read to you today that addresses just this question. How many people have read Mrs. Dalloway? I teach this every other year. You read it to me. I'm not professional. Actually, I can't start. You get extra credit. We'll start there. So here's the passage. But everyone remembered. What Clarissa loved was this, here, now, in front of her, the fat lady in the cab. Did it matter then, she asked herself, walking towards Bond Street? Did it matter that she must inevitably cease completely? All this must go on without her? Did she resent it? Or did it not become consoling to believe that death ended absolutely, but that somehow, in the streets of London, on the ebb and flow of things here, there, she survived, Peter survived, lived in each other. She being part, she was positive, of the trees at home, of the house there, ugly, rambling all to bits and pieces as it was, part of people she had never met, being laid out like a mist between the people she knew best, who lifted her on their branches as she had seen the trees lift the mist. But it spread ever so far, her life, herself. Good passage. Notice that Clarissa Dalloway uses survive to talk about people who are still alive, even if, as in Clarissa and Peter's cases, they haven't seen each other for years and no longer live as they used to when they knew each other. People like you, in other words, with your far-flung Westover friends. Wolfe uses it almost as a different verb from the one we are used to, not just lived on in time, but a verb more like lived more, lived in addition to this life here, a surfeit or a surplus of living, of liveliness, so that Clarissa imagines her life to be not just where she is physically, but much more extensive in hearing in all the places and people she has touched, even indirectly. Now, partly this is not surprising. We often mean something just like that when we talk about memory. Certainly in that sense, there are people remaining at Westover who remember, I think, all of you, even though you graduated and left here years ago. And in that sense, Westover recalls you. But please note that Wolfe suggests something more odd than that, because she includes trees and houses. And there's no obvious way such things have memories, at least the way we think of memory. But, can I just say, it has never been very clear at all what memory is or isn't. And though we tend to think of only self-conscious creatures having it, I will suggest as briefly as I can, I'll try to keep this brief, that perhaps the actual situation is not at all like that. For instance, a famous French philosopher, Henri Bergson, over 100 years ago, wrote a treatise on memory that reverses our usual account. That is, instead of thinking of memories being a special trait possessed by certain creatures who, like everything else, inhabit a factual, physical reality that continually moves forward in time, Bergson suggested that perhaps the reverse is the case. That what we call memory and think of as a special aspect of mind is actually just the normal truth of non-temporal reality, but is glimpsed by beings who are sadly limited by their bodies to skating on the linear surface of time. So that's a little hard to follow, but Bergson's view opens up the possibility that memory is not in here at all, but everywhere, out there, in the world. Indeed, in his view, it's plain old linear time that's the special odd trait of humans. To think this way, we have to stop thinking of ourselves as being like supercomputers processing internal analogs to a physical reality outside of us. We have to get away from talk of storing memories or filing them away, and that closer to William James or Freud's notion that memories simply are. They're true and existent, and it takes energy and pathology to repress or otherwise avoid one's perception of them. So, back to the question, where is Bruce Coffin? Yes, he may right now be in the library, or at a reunion event, or driving up here, or maybe still down in Hamden or New Haven. Maybe he's skipped out altogether, he's up in Vermont, but I don't think so. But he's also, right now, in the classroom next to mine, and he's on Red Hall stairs, surviving first of all those places he has been, some more significantly or at least perceptibly than others. Very obviously, there's a clear trail of words he's left. So he's in his book that he wrote, and in every lantern, and certainly on every lantern sign-in sheet and on a slew of grammar quizzes, believe me. But even in those places he's not left words behind him, he still survives at every lantern conference, every faculty meeting, every English 2 class that meets. He's also, I insist, surviving in places he has never been, but where he's been brought by others and by things, by all that captures him in outspread branches. If his survival in these places seems harder to discern, well, that's the fault of our eyes, which rely too heavily on what can be seen, rather than what can be known or could be known in other ways. Just so you all survive here. Even now, when you're no longer here at Westover physically day to day. Just as you helped shape all the interactions around you when you were here as students, you have and will continue to shape the interactions that will happen here in the future. Your psychological and moral fingerprints, so to speak, will be all over them. Ripples of your actions and echoes of your words will still remain, shaping and informing, even if no names are or can be attached. Just as it is here in chapel, so it is at Westover at large. Everyone who has passed through here is with us still. They're still here, all around us. Even if our ears and eyes are too limited to trace that complex DNA that connects us to all of them, that connects us here to all of you. Last year, my husband Sam received an envelope from his own private school alma mater, Moses Brown, in Rhode Island, alerting him to an upcoming reunion and mutual class gift fundraising. I noted on the back of the reunion's pledge envelope it said, "We stand on the shoulders of giants." And I could just make out that there's an attribution under those words. And I leaned over to get a better look, intrigued, already speculating how far back those words would go. I mean, sure, I know, Isaac Newton said it very famously, but it must go back further, I thought. Maybe ancient Greeks, Romans, further still. But then I saw the attribution underneath, and I'm telling you, it was an attribution. There were quotation marks. The attribution was simply to John Blaw and Andrew whatever, the 2 alumni heads of Sam's reunion committee. And I burst out laughing, just as you know, amazed at their arrogance. Did they really think they Probably they thought they were quoting the band Oasis, who have a song with that, but they were too embarrassed to admit that. But the more I thought about John and Andrew, the more I realized, well, you know, what else could they do? Could you really get all the way back to the first use of that idea, to the first person who thought and said it? Very unlikely. In fact, John and Andrew's failed attribution illustrates our common dilemma in a nutshell. We are small. And our vision and our understanding are smaller still. That's just true. But the mistake comes in when we look around and see only ourselves. Like like John and Andrew, we're already up so high that the very clouds dim the ground around us. We can't even see that it's actual shoulders we stand on. And that's true here at Westover. We feel it here. Though the current students and faculty can see and know a few predecessors, we don't know, and we can't possibly see all those people who come before us within these walls. Nonetheless, when we feel lifted high here by emotions and by achievements, and by our feeling of the uniqueness of this place, we must remind ourselves that we are being lifted up. That it is not we, but all these others who have come before and who are still here, so actively, buoyantly here, who are doing that heavy work of lifting for us. So, where is Johnson? Where is Paul Homer? Where is Bruce? James? Lisa Marie? Farah Moses? Anne? Melinda? Megan? Sarah? King Hussein? And so many, many others, all those many countless others, well, they're right here. They're right where we are. We are all right here together in the way things are done, in the ways they've been done and shaped by all these people, by all of you. Just thinking about that makes you want to open up your eyes as wide as you can and listen really, really hard. Because even when you think you're alone and in silence, standing quite still, doing nothing much at all, the truth is just the reverse. The current students, the ones here now, are just the most recent leg in a really long, really intricate relay race that you all took your own leg of when you were here. And at every moment that baton has just been handed off to them from you, women like you. Even now this is happening, just entering the space, we are asked once again to take our part in that important race. So here's what you need to do then with this movement. Here's what you need to do then with this moment that's been passed on to you. Hold on to it. Really look at what you've got there in your hands, because it's precious, because it's everything. And then hand it on. Hand on the legacies of these others and of yourself while you're at it. Because, as Wolf says, our lives travel so far, they spread ever so far. And with all our work, we keep them spreading. Those ripples of your lives here have spread, and they keep spreading. I want to end on some eloquent verses written on the subject by Richard Wilbur, himself and his poems an important link in this ghostly chain of love and attention that unites us all through this space and this community. So these are the final lines, the second half of the poem called Foresee, that he wrote for his wife, but they seem particularly applicable to this moment we're sharing together right now. Still, there's a certain scope in that long love which constant spirits are the keepers of, and which, though taken to be tame and staid, is a wild sustainado of the heart, a passion joined to courtesy and art, which has the quality of something made, like a good fiddle, like the rose's scent, like a rose window, or the firmament. Thank you.
It's become a tradition here at this time to take a few moments to remember in quiet prayer and meditation the members of the reunion classes who have died. And quietly, but not necessarily silent. If you would like, over the course of these moments, to share aloud the name of a person you are thinking of, so that we may share in your mindfulness, in your memory of her, please do so.
Lisa Marie Clark.
Antonio.
Reno Smith.
Catherine Tomlinson Burton. Gail Allen.
Elizabeth Owens. Stephanie Vincent.
Dear God, we pray for these and other Westover friends who are not with us in chapel this morning, but who are in our thoughts at this reunion time. We entrust all who are dear to us to your never failing care and love through this life and the life to come, believing